Hey everybody in the reggae universe, welcome to A Conversation in Dub, hosted by me, Mark Ramondi.
And me, James Pasqua. This podcast is all about exploring the massive world of reggae and dub music, from its roots in Jamaica to its influence on various music genres worldwide.
This podcast also explores the intricacies of dub through insightful conversations, interviews with artists, and in-depth analysis of iconic tracks. We don't just talk about the music, but also the stories behind it, the techniques used in its production, and the social and political context that shaped its development.
Our goal is to promote mindful listening, taking you, the listener, on the journey the artist intended. Through this process, we hope to introduce you to new music or give you a new insight on music you already know and love.
This podcast is brought to you by Rootfire, a platform for reggae music worldwide with a mission to empower artists and nurture the community that supports them. You're here because you love reggae music and want to be a part of that community. We're here to help connect the dots.
If you have any feedback for us, be sure to email us at aconversationindub@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram at aconversationindub. We love hearing from you. Now,
let's get to the show.
Today, we are honored to have Jim the Boss with us, a fellow member of the Rootfire family. He is a engineer, a producer. He runs the Hoboken Hi-Fi, Hudson Soul. He's a writer for Rootfire. He just came out with a really cool Halloween-themed record called Jim the Boss Presents Dubs from the Grave. Jim the Boss, welcome. Glad to have you on.
Thank you so much.
And you're calling us from the Bronx Zoo, which is honestly hilarious.
Awesome. It's awesome. So it's like dubs from the zoo today, but at least that's also Halloween themed, which makes it pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty interesting play. I've done a lot of interviews in interesting places, but I think this one takes the cake.
Nice.
That's perfect. It'll be nice and memorable, man. I absolutely love that.
So, Jim, we definitely want to talk about the new release, the Halloween-themed dub album, because that's always a fun thing. But can we start more from the beginning on like how you got into reggae in the first place and how you started doing your thing over there in Jersey?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
So this is a story I always talk about, and because it was like the first of many things. I was living in Miami at the time. Used to go to this club all the time on Fridays and Saturdays. Not much to do down there. And there was a guy spinning vinyl records, and I thought what I heard was reggae, but the only things I ever heard was like Bob Marley and like Specials, and I heard this song. It sounded like a reggae version of Soul Serenade, which is like an old jazz song. And sure enough, it was, but it was a song called The Bleachers Come Into My Parlor. And it was funny. It was all these girls like crowding this around this DJ, and I'm like trying to like fish my way through the girls to find out what song this was, like the only dude up there. And the guy told me, and so I went home, looked on YouTube, and I found all this like, early reggae music that I never heard before. And I just fell in love with it from then on.
Wow. That's so cool. And definitely like a random way to get into this genre. That is awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was into punk rock for a long time, and I never thought I would listen to anything but punk rock. And then that was like my turning point.
Nice.
Well, they're like brother genres, so it's like it's a perfect fit. The message was always there, and just one's a little more aggressive than the other one.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the Specials, like the more I got into reggae, the more I understood the Specials more. But coming from a non-reggae background, it resonated, but in a different way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in those early stages, like what was the punk stuff that you were listening to? And then like what was the early reggae stuff that you found that kind of really drew you in? Like was there specific artists that were just like, oh my God, this is really opening my eyes up to this more, that you really kind of like made the leap?
Well, the early, like the punk rock I was listening to probably at that time was like Black Flag, Red Cross. I mean, I guess they're considered more hardcore for the time, but the Descendants was always a big one for me. Yeah, Misfits, all that stuff. And then, yeah, so hearing the Bleachers was one. You know, I never heard stuff like that before. To me, I always thought reggae was like this slow Rasta thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
here they are covering like jazz songs and singing about like love, like doo-wop or like soul music. I had no clue. I had no clue that, you know, Jamaica would be covering Motown songs. So
That's fair.
No, we're
yeah, I
talking.
dug deep that night after hearing all that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what I came up with, to be honest, at the time. I remember the Bleachers, of course, and I remember like Rico Rodriguez,
Hmm.
and yeah, and then I guess I found, you know, I slowly over time I'd find different, you know, new stuff, you know.
Love it. Really cool. Really cool. And what about like your own personal background as a musician? So like when did that kind of like start for you? What was that journey looking like for you before you kind of settled into the genre you wanted to really start creating it?
Oh, so I I had been playing music like I'd say like professionally since I was 16. I played for a lot of local hardcore punk bands. And then when I was around 18, I wanted to do a lot of session work. So just kind of meet local bands, put my name out there on like whatever was available at the time, maybe like Craigslist or something. Um,
Nice.
and then when I came back from Florida, I was like, I'm like into reggae now. So I'm like, I wanted to like stop playing, start recording. So it kind of was all like falling into place that way. And I think I put an ad out on Craigslist when I came back from Florida. I was like, engineer wants to like record reggae or something like that. And I hooked up with this guy um, named Gregory Cage, which I still occasionally work with. And he kind of taught me everything there was about playing reggae and recording reggae, and even just how to
Cool.
like be an independent engineer, how to find your own work and all that stuff. So he was definitely like a early mentor.
Wow, that's
Nice.
incredible.
Yeah, that stuff's like invaluable because you can't just look that up. You can't just like, how do I do this? And you get an answer. You know, you have to link up with somebody like that. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, especially at time I would Google stuff like how to record reggae. Nothing showed up. And
Lots of bass. That's it.
Yeah.
there was this, so I, you know, like to start my career as an engineer, I couldn't just say, oh, I'm gonna just go record reggae. You know, I'm not gonna get any work. So I apprenticed for some like pop engineers,
Hmm.
uh,
Mm,
and I worked at like commercial studios, stuff like that. Um,
that's
and
awesome.
yeah, and so yeah, Googling how to record reggae, that wasn't a thing that you do. You kind of had to go find people to tell you how to do it, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
100%.
yeah, and from that, I mean, you flourished in so many different kind of relationships and connections you've made with other musicians that are really deep into the genre to kind of be able to even create these collaborations like the Halloween tracks that we're talking about today. So, like, talk to me about that, like the whole networking process of like getting to know these different artists and working with different people along the timelines of that and how these projects were able to come together.
Okay, so the more I had read about that, like, see, the guys I apprenticed with, they would tell me about the old days, like, oh, you know, you had the union, you had session bands and all the stuff, and you know, sometimes you have session bands that only worked for a specific studio. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, maybe this is a good way to go. Maybe you know, maybe I find like a guy who plays reggae in New York City, and then maybe he could introduce me. I'll have my own band. So that's basically kind of what I did. Um, there was a
That's
guy I apprenticed with at the studio. He goes, "Oh, you want to play reggae?" He goes, "I know this guy plays bass. All he ever wants to do is play reggae. He's from New Jersey, and that's Steve Capecci. That's the guy who plays bass on like everything.
Yeah.
And he's the one that introduced me to. He brought me over to New York. I had no clue that there was a whole everything that I wanted to do was happening there. I had no clue. Like all like parties, DJs, and like old school like Jamaican artists were still like doing stuff, and I had no clue that was going on, and if it
That's
wasn't for Steve, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, Steve played on a bunch of records. I think that we know, we probably don't even
Oh,
realize.
yeah, he's played for everybody you could pretty much think of. He's like a true session musician.
Yeah.
so cool.
I remember having a similar revelation of going to the city after, doing a lot of stuff in Jersey, and then going to the city and being like, wow, they're having like, sound system parties, and like people like Tickla would just show up and hang out, and you'd see like the Slackers there, and you're like, what is happening? There's this whole scene here. That's crazy. And it was still very underground.
Yeah, that's completely true. Like, there was this place called the Lake or the Swamp, depending on what
Mm,
years you went there, run by this company called East Rev, and that's where they'd have all these sound system parties, and you'd see like the reggae bands, and maybe you might old like making DJ on microphone, over like the B side of a record. Yeah, had no clue that all this stuff was happening like, 5 miles from me.
that's great. So you're doing that stuff. What got you into soul music? Because I know you're like almost equally invested in soul music and soul records and things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on all that stuff. My mom was like a big Motown fan. She gave me
Mm,
her like Motown 45s when I was younger. Uh,
Hmm.
my dad was into like doo-wop stuff, but more like mainstream. And so I started buying records like even when I was a kid. I wasn't really deep into it, but I guess as I started DJing more, I didn't want to keep playing the same old stuff, so I started to buy a lot more over time. And then I have my record friends, the guys that their whole lives are buying records. So you hang out with them long enough, and you'll end up with 1,000 more records than you had yesterday.
right. Just thinking, the combination of loving punk rock music, growing up with Motown and doo-wop stuff. I mean, that's the recipe for early Jamaican music right there. So it it all, the
Makes
puzzle
sense.
is really coming together here.
It fits.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
definitely checks.
at least for like I'd say for American-born musicians, that's kind of how the story goes.
Mm,
Or it's like, oh, I liked Sublime and I wanted to know where they got their stuff from.
yep. Yep.
Um, we were born and living in a time when all the stuff, all the reggae that we like, kind of happened already, right? So
Hmm.
we had to find it from these different sources that maybe we wouldn't have had, back when it was happening. Maybe we wouldn't even have found it when it was happening.
That's
It's
true.
true. That's very true. It's definitely a big advantage with how accessible everything became, especially for like the time period when we were growing up to be able to explore into this genre and really get into it. It's definitely something we're grateful for. Another reason why we do this to kind of help people be able to explore and figure out all the different like nuances you can have within this genre too, because there's just so much. There's so many different sounds that come together to make this genre what it is, which is really that's what makes it so special.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's like the catalyst behind like a lot of the things that I do. I know I write for Rootfire. That the whole point. I write most of the stuff that I write there is just I just want other people to know.
Hmm.
That's the only
Absolutely.
thing. I don't care if I get paid or if someone gives me something. I just want people to know.
Absolutely, man. Experience gains knowledge, and knowledge is meant to be shared, and that's the wonderful thing we get to do with all of this, which is pretty cool. But I mean, especially with everything you've done with Rootfire, like let's talk about like that relationship. When did that start for you, and like how has that evolved over the years too?
So I mark like maybe the end of 2016 or when my studio at the time like we had to stop looking for work and the work was finding us.
Mm,
And the one of the people that found us was Dave Schiffman, and he emailed me and he goes, "Oh, I didn't know that you live, that you're in New Jersey and we like live right near each other, and I'd like to do a story on the studio." I was like, "All right, well, we got a session at this time. Come on down." And he came. I don't. You know, it's funny. He might have even sat on the session where we recorded Halloween Town.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, now that I think about it. And so yeah, he just sat there with us and he hung out and he wrote this big story on us and all was well. And then I guess we started hanging out because we live so close to each other. And I think maybe I must have said, "Oh, you know, I've done some writing before. You think I could write something for Rootfire?" And that it kind of spawned into that. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, sometimes Dave would like encourage me, like, "Oh, you should write this review or you should do this interview." And if I have the time, I'll do it. You know. And then I would have like ideas like, "Hey, Dave, I got this great idea. What if we did this?" And he goes, "Yeah, that sounds good. Let's talk about it." You know. So I mean, everybody at Rootfire seems pretty like open to anything that you want to do. They rarely turn things down, I feel.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
they're definitely open to ideas. My wife Jackie writes a couple
Yeah,
articles for Rootfire,
that's right.
and you know sometimes it'll be like, hey, I have this idea. I want to write about this thing, this weird thing that nobody else is talking about, and you know she'll work with Dave Schiffman and be like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. So they're just looking for input and stuff. It's not just like you have to write about X, Y, Z. It's pretty open. I
Yeah, I
like that.
agree.
Yeah. I think that's also what makes the connection with working with Rootfire and collaborating with Rootfire such an enjoyable experience because they allow people to kind of like flourish into their own passions with it, which makes the whole idea of it grow, which makes
Mm.
it so exciting. So it's especially for us, it's been such a pleasure to be able to have that collaboration with Rootfire as well, and it leads to so much growth and also the opportunities to be able to have these awesome conversations with artists and engineers like yourself too. So it's definitely a full circle thing with Rootfire, which becomes really special.
Yeah, I agree. They're very encouraging, and they definitely encourage connection. Um, you know, I've had ideas in the past, and Dave's like, "Well, I don't really know about this, but you know, maybe you should talk to Reed." And then, you know, Reed would contact me and give me his best advice. So it's definitely a very welcoming place for sure.
100%.
Absolutely. And it's funny speaking about welcoming too, like we're welcoming in the new season over here. The weather's changing. I mean, I'm also in Jersey, bro, so I know you're feeling it too. Like it's starting to get a little colder. We're lucky we got some nice weather today, but it's been like dipping down low. These mornings are getting cooler and we are bringing in the fall season hard.
Oh yeah, I'm never actually ready for it. Like I tell myself that I'm ready for it, and then when it actually happens, no, I'm not. I just hate
Same
that it
here.
goes on for so long. Like you're
I
like, oh, I
know.
like this, but then by February you're like, can we get this over with already?
Yeah, that's always the
I'm
case.
so with you. My fiance and I, we're not built for the cold. And every year it surprises us. Like it's brand new. And we're just like, oh, because I get so excited. Like fall is one of my favorite times of year. It's just followed up by like the dead cold for months on end until things start to break. So trying to enjoy these little peaks of beautiful weather while we have them. But man, I am so happy that you have done something like Halloween inspired. Like I'm really big into Halloween. It's so cool and I'm so curious like when did like a type of passion project like this start for you? How has the growth process of this like how has this been built, man?
Um, so yeah, so years ago we recorded Halloween Town, and but we never did anything with it.
Mm,
Um, I think I might have like sent it off to like for radio, just like as like a holiday promo thing. But
cool.
I always had that idea, oh, we should do this album, and I had all these grand ideas, but you know, grand ideas cost money and it's time, and then the pandemic happens, then I decided to take a break for a while. Um,
Absolutely.
but then I think the thing was is that I thought of it early enough in the summer this time to have enough time to work on it. So it's
Mhm.
been Halloween for me since like the end of August. And
That's hilarious.
but I always had these ideas too for like these cartoon promos and stuff, but I don't know anything about cartooning. So I made myself learn. I learned how to animate stuff in a couple weeks. So I've been doing all these animations for all these promo videos. Never did
Oh,
this
that's so
before,
cool.
but I never had, you know, animation's expensive. I never had the money to do it, and I
Mm.
felt like if I was going to do it, it has to be done a specific way. So I don't know. I think maybe it was meant to happen this way. It just took a long time, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really digging the animations you're putting up.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's all those little 2 second things are going to culminate to something this week.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah, like another promo, not like a full length, but like just something nice to look at when people finally get to download everything.
And I imagine 2 seconds of animation takes
Oh,
hours.
it takes like
Oh,
4 hours.
Yeah.
Your
oh.
your legs are ready to like just give up, and your mind is like, I can tell you, I know how to draw a skeleton hand really well by this point. I've been drawing them for months.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome though, man. I mean, I love that this like one creative outlet for you with music is opening up so many others. Like I mean, passion projects never take a little bit of time. You know, that's what makes them so special.
Yeah, you just need the motivation. If you do have that motivation, and anybody could do it. It's just finding how to manage your time, and can you sit there for 4 hours and draw skeleton hands over and over again?
That's
You know.
real.
Do you
That's
want
awesome.
to? Funny thing, I don't know what it is about reggae and, Halloween theme that seems to have an ongoing thing. It's not a new thing to mix reggae with spooky stuff, which sounds weird, but there's a bunch of albums out there that are that theme. I just find it so funny, and I love it. We have Halloween parties here, and I always put the spooky reggae stuff on there. There's a lot of scientist stuff like that. So is it just like continuing on with that theme that you're doing?
It's funny you say that because I think in Jamaica, I don't know if like Halloween is like a thing for them, but I think because they have like a lot of like anti-voodooism,
Mm,
like Obadiah kind of stuff going on, that maybe that's where they get it from.
mm.
I could be totally wrong,
Hmm.
but that's just like my thoughts on like research and people I've talked to.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
yeah, there has been like, so like I did the Root Fire Select this week, and I put in Halloweenish or songs that have like death or like whatever in the title. But there's really not that many of them. Scientist did his the rid the world of the evil vampires, but I think that
Yeah.
might be that one, and maybe another one might be the only records that he did. And it's not like that stuff was specifically written for Halloween. It's just remixes with some evil after, you know.
Right. It's just now
Um,
affiliated with that, and that's the big one. Is that album?
yeah, well, I mean, all that is just Wailing Souls and Michael Prophet remixes with some over the front of it.
It's
It's
true.
it's not like it was specifically written for the holiday.
Right. But
So yeah, like yeah, so I guess to answer your question, yeah, it's not like continuing. I just like Halloween. I wanted to do something that was specific for it.
I
I
nice.
love
think
that.
mostly because I know a lot of those old, like in the 50s in the United States, they would have a lot of like novelty Halloween songs. So I think that's where I'm inspired, you know.
Nice.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely hear that in the songs.
yeah, all those, laughter, that's all like ripped from like Monster Mash and like
Yep.
that Universal Monsters whole thing. I
Absolutely. Even the outro, everything with that just gave me those vibes, which I thought was really cool.
This kid just walked by in this skeleton costume, but it looks like it's a skeleton like carrying him. It's the most hilarious costume.
That's so funny. It's so great. I've never thought to go to the Bronx Zoo around Halloween time. I can't imagine how cool it's got to be right now.
I mean, I don't think. Yeah, we only came because I've never been here before.
Wow.
And then, yeah, just then it turned out that there's a Halloween parade happening. So it just hit it at the right time.
That is so cool, man. I love it. It's those moments, man. It's those precious moments. That's going to be really cool. And like, what a great way to kind of get into the holiday spirit with all this and also to be able to have this album we're talking about, you know. And I always think, like, you know, it's these moments that make these things special, especially with projects like this. And we've got 7 tracks here on this album. Like, what were some special moments that you can kind of recall from the recording process of this? Because we have some awesome collaborations with different musicians on this. And I was just wondering some behind the scenes stories of some tracks that might stick out with this particular album for you.
So most of those tracks were recorded like a while ago, right? So I said that uh the whole idea was sparked with Halloween Town.
Yep.
But you know, like a lot of that stuff kind of sat unmixed for a long time. So it's just like, oh, this is a cool idea, but you know, put it on the back burner. So I did remix all that stuff for, you know, this release. Plus, I was adding all those sound effects and the goofy laughter. I even texted my girl at a point. I'm like, "Hey, do you think you can do a witch laugh?" And she's like, "I'll try." She just does it on her iPhone, just sends it to me. I was like, "This is perfect," you know.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
And so I guess to answer your question, I think what was cool is that number one, I'm getting to finally release this stuff that only maybe a limited amount of people might have heard before. Um, we do a cover of the American Horror Story theme, and that was pretty cool because so that technically, so I have a cover band called the Rolling Jays, and we initially started with some different people, and that was. We were going to do that for this Halloween show that we did. So that came from like a rehearsal. But the funny thing is that like the drums weren't even mic'd. Like the drum sound comes from like a random vocal mic, but the performance was really good. So I did a lot of like fixing in the mix to bring it out and try to make it like an actual song that you can listen to. Like I had to redo bass lines and like add some guitar where it needed. So you know that one was something that you know had to put some time into.
That's awesome.
Other than that, the rest of the stuff was already done. Just had to mix and throw some sound effects on it.
That's awesome.
Actually
and sometimes
really cool.
that's you know the best way to go is just you have some of these songs just lying around and you're like, all right, I got to put these out. Let's just do this album. They're you know they're mostly there. You just put all the nice touches on it, and there you go. Perfect. Spend time on the animation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if the pandemic didn't happen, like this probably would have happened already. We might be talking about something completely different, you know.
True.
But that happened. You know, I was like, oh, I'm going to take a break for a while. I took a break for like 5 years. So all this stuff that probably would have happened is now only starting to restart. But, you know, that's life. That's how things go.
Yes.
Yeah, man. And timing, I mean, it happens when it's supposed to happen. And I'm glad that it's happening at a time where it can intersect and we can talk about it on here, feature it, and get this out there for people to listen to and help get people in the mood for Halloween because it definitely sets an awesome scene. And it's a lot of fun. It's a fun listen through, and it really is something that's cool that we can have like as an annual thing for Halloween too. It'll be something cool that different people can put on reggae Halloween playlists and stuff because I know that's something that I always search for too with Halloween parties and things like that. So it's awesome to just be able to have into the mix, man. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, I hope it becomes like a seasonal thing for people. You know, kind of like how Byron Lee's reggae Christmas album is something I listen to like every year.
Yep.
I mean, it is interesting, like you said, like how things come together. I think you guys might have just been starting, or maybe, yeah, I don't know if you guys were even around like when the last time I was doing music like seriously. So yeah, you know, it is good that things happen when they happen. So
definitely, yeah, we weren't doing this podcast when you had released previous albums, you know, as
yes.
as
Yeah,
under
you
your
guys
name.
are fairly new, like only a couple years, right?
Yeah, we've been doing this a couple
Yeah.
years. We started during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was a COVID passion project because we always used to listen to music together and talk about albums. And we're like, why don't we just do this? And it was a nice way to hang out because, I mean, nobody was really hanging out with anybody through that time. So it was a great opportunity to just stop listening to music and just kind of relax through everything too. And then next thing you know, like with Root Fire and being able to have awesome conversations with artists all over the world. So it's been a wonderful little journey, unexpectedly wonderful journey.
Here we are, 130 episodes in.
Oh wow, yeah. So things come together when they do. That's awesome.
For
Yeah,
sure.
man. And like as always too with this platform, anything else you have coming down the pipeline, anything new that we can look forward to, we'd be more than happy to have those conversations and get that out there as well. And is there anything that you do have your eyes set on for the future and the next kind of steps and things that you're working on? Or I mean, you just got this project coming out. Are we just sitting with this for a bit and then seeing where the creative juices flow? What's the next couple months looking like for you?
Well, since I'm like restarting in a big way, I figure, we got the momentum. So I have like a collaboration project with Dubmaster Khan and
Mm,
Esteban Descalzo of Kingston Factory down Buenos Aires, Argentina.
yeah.
So that's
That's
something we
awesome.
worked on a while ago, and we're gonna finally put that out. And then, I'm sitting on a lot of songs. Like I have a song Cornell Campbell that I've been sitting around on for a while, so try to get that out there. Um, I think I have some more like Jai tracks floating around that probably have never done. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to maybe do more EPs, maybe a lot of more themed stuff. Try to make it like a little journey that people could kind of get into.
That's exciting, man. I mean, hey, Christmas is around the corner, so any kind of theme stuff you got going on, we're always welcoming it. So
Well, it's funny
awesome,
you say
man.
it. I've been trying to push people to do a Christmas album for years. So maybe one of these days we'll get around to something like that. I think that would be a good idea.
If you need any tracks, hit us up. Let us know.
Absolutely.
We're players too. With respect to, sharing the knowledge of the music, because I know you like to do that. That's our mission too. You have such a deep understanding and knowledge of the genre. Are there any sources or books or anything that you would recommend to people to check out? Anything you want to share that comes top of mind?
Well, I could say like Michael Veal wrote a book, called I think it was called Dub Soundscapes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a King Tubby biography that came out a couple years ago. Um, but I don't know. I don't think people should look just solely into like what the Jamaicans were doing because they learned a lot from like out of country engineers. They had the BBC engineers come teach them stuff. So like anything that people could find, like if they're interested in the old style recording, like anything they could find about how stuff was recorded back then will pretty much point them in the right direction. Um, and then like DM Khan, I mean, he runs a whole like online instructional thing through
Mm.
YouTube, and he does pretty well with that. And I guess I could be biased saying this because I'm friends with him, but um, he seems to do and be pretty legit with all of his sounds and everything. He encourages people to experiment. So there's a lot more resources out there now than when I started. I mean, I'm sure you could Google how to record reggae, and I'm sure something would come up these days.
Yeah,
That's fair.
it's much more
Much more
vast now.
accessible.
And yeah, I definitely follow DM Khan. He has a lot of good like how to get the Roots Radix snare drum sound, and he'll show you exactly how to get it, which didn't
Oh yeah,
exist.
his ear, like he's a humble man. We talk often, but
Mm,
his ear is very in tune with what those sounds are, and he can match them pretty well. I've never spent time trying to do that, but he
mm.
definitely he if he hears a snare sound, he's going to figure out how exactly how it sounds and tell you how it sounds too. So
Yeah, I'm
So
definitely
cool.
interested to hear collaboration between you two, because him getting in tune with those sounds and your style of recording in the traditional way, I mean, come
Be
on.
sick.
That could be a killer album right there.
Well, yeah, stay tuned. I'll you know, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll start talking about that in December. We got to get over Halloween first.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's the truth. That's
So
the
you have
truth,
the
man.
album Jim the Boss presents Dubs from the Grave. By the time this episode airs, that will be out on all streaming platforms. Is that right?
I think this time I only did Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal because I had that American Horror Story cover
Yeah.
song, and I had to get the license, and the whole licensing with different platforms can be a pain. So I think I kind of kept it to a couple.
Sure. And Bandcamp.
Absolutely.
Let's
Yeah,
send people to
push that
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
Yeah.
That's the one we go for because that's where it has all the merch and everything.
Yeah, get the merch,
Absolutely.
get the album, support the music. It's a really fun project. I love listening to it in preparation for this conversation. So I'll be adding that to my Halloween playlist for sure.
Absolutely, man. And real quick before we go, because I want to let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your day at the Bronx Zoo, want to ask real quick for everybody listening out there, what would be either your top 3 artists or top 3 tracks that you would have some people who are listening to this that they can go and listen to, rabbit holes that they could fall down? What would you suggest? Top 3.
Like off the album or just in general?
In general, for you that you're listening to right now that you like to help kind of expand people's palettes on what to listen to.
Oh, okay. Well, funny enough, I've been listening for like a month straight, nothing but tracks from Leo Graham because I've been working on a new Unsung Heroes article for him. So Leo Graham was in the Overtakers, the Bleachers, the Mellotones, and he had a lot of solo stuff. So if people want to listen to Leo Graham, that's a good rabbit hole to go down.
Nice. Yeah, and then
That's
you
great.
came full circle because he was in the Bleachers, and that was one of the first reggae tunes that got you into reggae. So
Come into my
that's amazing.
parlor. It's funny how it goes full circle. That was what got me into reggae, and here I am doing massively deep research into figuring out this mysterious man.
That's awesome.
Amazing. I don't know much about that, so I'm very much looking forward to checking that article out when it comes out.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm very excited for when this comes out because it just seems like a lot of things. Just there's a lot of mysteries to the guy, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to really like bring the story to, or at least parts of it to the public.
That's perfect.
Perfect. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Enjoy the rest of your day. Looking forward to more from you. Sounds like you have a lot of things that you're working on, a lot of little projects. So definitely looking forward to checking it all out. Dubs from the Grave is out now. Go listen to it. Go buy it on Bandcamp. Get the merch. And thanks for taking your time and talking to us. It's a long time coming, I think.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Absolutely. You too, man. Take care.
Thanks for listening to A Conversation in Dub, hosted by James Pasqua and Mark Raimondi. Conversation in Dub is brought to you by Rootfire, a platform for reggae music worldwide with a mission to empower artists and nurture the community that supports them. You're here because you love reggae music and want to be a part of that community? We're here to help you connect the dots.
This show is produced and edited by James Pasqua. Our theme music is an original composition called Keep Dubbing by James Pasqua and Mark Raimondi. If you want to hear previous episodes containing full songs, you can find them all on Spotify. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Conversation in Dub. And if you have any feedback, requests, or just want to talk about music, reach out there or email us at aconversationindub@gmail.com. Make sure to rate us on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, keep dubbing.